So fall position preview part 2, defensive backs and safeties, over under 1 interception a game. And we'll start with, of course, the man, the myth, the legend, Will Johnson, who I believe had the highest rating of any player in college football 25. Will Johnson in the house, pretty much universal first team in all of the magazines. Defense, Will Johnson. As you mentioned earlier, TJ, Jair Hill's taking that CB2 position, and Zeke Berry at nickel. And before we go into these three, I guess my question, first of all, since we have covered a little bit of this topic earlier in the show, what happened to McBurrows, and how are Jair Hill and Zeke Berry? Because McBurrows at various times was mentioned as the potential nickelback and potential CB2. I mean, what kind of has propelled Jair Hill and Zeke Berry ahead? We know Will Johnson's the starter and going to lock down half the field, but what kind of happened with the other three there?
Well, in terms of the nickel position, Zeke Berry he outperformed Jaden McBurrows. I mean, he's just a player who's, when he was coming out of high school, he was originally committed to Arizona, I believe. And we were able to get him to come to Michigan. And, he's just a player at a high level caliber. He was nearly a top 100. He was in the top 100s to 170 range, something along those lines. A big time playmaker, coming out of high school, and he's just taken that next step at the college level. So, he's just a bit higher caliber of an athlete than a Jaden McBurrows, which is, but look, Jaden McBurrows played well in camp too. He's another one of the players that we are looking to be a depth player in the rotation this year. You will see some Jaden McBurrows this year. He played a little bit last year as well. So yeah, which is great, so it just happens to be the better player is getting the role. And then in terms of Jair Hill, I mean, he's just, it's kind of, I'll be honest, I'm surprised that they are essentially, I mean, it's kind of been like, look, it's Jair Hill at CB2. This has not been like, even though Amir Hall has played well, and he also has some playbook he has to learn. He needs more time on task because he's new. But it's just been legitimately like little controversy. Jair Hill is CB2. He's ready. Look, he was a top 100 player out of high school, out of Illinois, and he just, it's just his time. That's just what it is. So excited. He's an extremely good athlete too. He runs I forgot what his 100 was, but he's in the, he's in the 10s. He's sub 11. So another strong player at the QB2 position.
2/3 of the earth is covered by water. Will Johnson can cover the rest.
Yeah.
So, okay. So let's start there. I think in terms of, just the fact that he can do that is going to almost allow another player to kind of roam around and, and do things. So, I'm not against Jaden McBurrows. Let's see what happens. Maybe when there's some rotation, maybe players will get hot or whatever. Let's see what happens. I'm looking forward to seeing all of them play. So that's what I would say.
And let's just, since we're talking about some of the depth people, in addition to Jaden McBurrows, another player that was discussed pretty heavily at CB2 was Amir Hall. And so he's another one that it seems like Jair Hill has just kind of beat him out by, as Jim Harbaugh used to say, on merit. So is Amir Hall another one? I feel like McBurrows, Amir Hall, some of these players can be used heavily, and maybe they're not technically starters, but I'm sure there are going to be concepts and packages for both of these guys.
Yeah, I mean, they will be out there at times, or they will be out there to relieve the starters from, to get them a little break, catch their breath. But look, I fully expect Amir Hall and Jaden McBurrows to have larger rep counts than some of the other depth players. we spoke on Jaden Mangum. He's kind of learning the playbook and finding his game. Ricky Johnson, he was the transfer we got from UNLV. He's more of a depth piece. He's kind of a reserve role in case there is an injury or anything of that. I don't fully expect Ricky Johnson to have a large impact this year. Miles Pollard, who I'm actually a fan of when we got him, I believe he played for Ravenwood out of Tennessee. Junior Colston's former high school, which if anyone watched that game with JJ McCarthy and Junior Colston, you saw Miles Pollard lay out a player in that game, which I became a fan instantly. But yeah, I mean, a name that you don't have on here that I think is a curious one that maybe potentially at the end of the year is Josiah Edmond. Josiah Edmond could be a name that maybe at the end of the year we could see maybe get some action, especially when we're blowing out Ohio State in the fourth quarter and you put the reserves in, something like that. We'll see what happens. But yeah, no, but that's kind of where we are. I didn't know. I mean, are we covering safeties, John? Because you got some safeties
next.
here. Okay. Well, you got some safeties in the depth here, but yeah. All right, so I'll hit it. X Factor, sleeper, and bold prediction. So I mean, I think it's gonna be unanimous here. The X Factor is Will Johnson. It's really not a debate unless you just want to be a contrarian. But it is what it is. Will Johnson's the man. He's gonna shut down half the field. Major player. My sleeper and a hype train I've been on is Amir Hall. I'm on the Amir Hall hype train. I think he's a legitimate player. I was impressed with his film. I think he's actually a similar player to Josh Wallace, but more athletic. So I expect him to be playing at a pretty high level this year. So I expect Amir Hall. And then my bold prediction is, and it's actually going to fall in line with the safety, so it covers both. We are going to have a top 3 pass defense in the nation this year.
All right. Well, X Factor. I mean, how can you not go with Will Johnson? I mean, it's like the most obvious thing, right? So, sleeper. Well, I mean, you're already declaring Zeke Berry a starter, but that's who I had kind of as a sleeper. So I guess I'll put.
You could break out.
So I'll go with that. And then bold prediction. I'm going to hold it because I think it relates to the next question you have. So the interception question. So I'll put a hold on that, and then I'll talk about it then. So
okay,
the over under interception.
Yeah. So for me on this one, obviously Will Johnson's the X factor. Yeah, the sleeper on this one is tougher for me. Because like Jair Hill and Zeke Berry both, because this is kind of like new-ish information that Jair Hill and Zeke Berry have taken those spots according to the coaches. So yeah, I mean, I think I'm gonna say Jair Hill because everybody's saying that Will Johnson has his side of the field locked down, but I think Jair Hill will equally have his side of the field locked down. And from all accounts, he is ready. So I'm going to go him. And for bold prediction, well, this probably won't be so bold, but Will Johnson will have a better year statistically than he had last year. So he will improve. We all thought he was awesome last year, and then we found out he was playing injured, and so he's saying that this year his own words that he's going to break out even more, and that we'll see what he's really capable of. So even though he did pick off Marvin Harrison Jr., he had some lights out plays. It's just the beginning for Will Johnson.
All right, I'll throw in one other bold prediction since because since we're going to talk about this other topic in a second here. So I didn't want it to sort of double count. I will say that Will Johnson will be in at least 3 offensive plays this year.
Oh, that's interesting.
Oh, good call. Good call.
That's what I'll add that to my list, because I felt like I was kind of double dipping there with answering 2 things at once. So yeah,
I like it.
At
That's
least
nice.
3 times he will be. He may not get the ball, whatever, but they might just throw him in there to keep to freak out the defense on the opposing side for at least 3 plays this year.
If he's locking down the defense the way he is, and he's making plays, and there's any Heisman buzz, I will guarantee you will see him on offense. I will guarantee that Michigan will figure out a way to get him on offense to try and generate more buzz for Will Johnson.
Yeah, and there's obviously, in order to build a Heisman campaign in 2024, if you want to be a defensive player with a Heisman campaign, you kind of have to do some snaps on offense and or special teams to get on into that conversation. So that's very possible. I could see it happening against a certain team that Michigan has beat the last 3 years. That team down south that we all love to hate, Ohio State.
Oh, thanks for being
University.
specific, because we beat almost every team the last year.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. All right, let's roll into the safeties. And so we've got Makari Page and Quentin Johnson, but as TJ mentioned, Quentin Johnson is listed as the free safety here, but there could be some competition with Wesley Walker. And even, like I said, even Phil Steele listed Wesley Walker as his projected free safety. So there could be a back and forth there.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting. We know Makari Page is locked down at the strong safety position. It's just, who's going to play opposite of Makari Page. It does appear to be Quentin Johnson. Like no one's, we're not claiming that it's Wesley Walker, but it's just interesting that there is some word out of camp that Wesley Walker has gotten some reps with the ones. It could just be experimental or we don't know. It's speculation at this point. So interesting to note. We do expect Wesley Walker to have some playing time this year, though. He is going to be on the field. You will hear his name. But so I mean, these are the starters. Quentin Johnson was an unexpected return to the team this year. He was, they were expecting he was going to go on his NFL journey, but he came back, and we're going to see. I mean, I'm excited for Quentin Johnson to get his opportunity. He's a very fast player. I think he ran in the 4.39s or something like that out of high school. Extremely gifted. It's his time. He waited his turn behind a lot of very good safeties. So let's see what Quentin Johnson can do.
Yeah, I'm counting not only safeties, but across the defense. Is it 6 players that played in 15 games? 7 players, if you include Makari Page, played in at least 14 games last year. So believe it or not, we do have a lot of experience. I think Page and Johnson have it locked down. I am rooting for Quentin Johnson. I mean, to go on that journey that he did and to come back and help us when we had a major injury. I'm definitely rooting for him.
Oh,
and let
me add this.
Yeah, go ahead.
You know what? Never mind. You got it right there. I was just going to add, be on the lookout for the potential Rodmore return October, November, likely later because there's no reason to rush him. But, that October, November window is kind of the projected return date. We'll see. I mean, here's the thing, though. If we get him in November and Michigan's in a great spot for a playoff run, perfect timing to add a all Big Ten caliber safety to your defense. So be on the lookout for Rodmore. Definitely not a name to be forgotten.
Well, that's good news.
Yeah. Rodmore is apparently acting as if, in the way that he's breaking the film down and his approach, he's operating as if he's coming back. He's not operating fully assistant coach like he's going to be out the entire year. And so, October would be borderline miraculous. I don't think anybody was expecting October. November playoff is what I have here as I think a semi-reasonable expectation of they're gonna I think be very cautious with him. And given that, I know they're going to want to preserve him for if he decides to declare to the NFL, preserve him for that. And then also, I mean, look, he's if he did nothing else, his close he had his big argument there against Ohio State that will go down in maybe even the Mount Rushmore of incredible plays. But he could be back for the tougher games in the end of the season, some of the toughest games at the end of the season. So
and what do you think of him actually like going in, like fresh going in? You think he could do that, or do you think that would be a risk?
No, I mean, as long as he's given the proper amount of time to come back from this injury, I mean, he's good to go. I mean, will he be at 100%? No, because it usually takes time to get back to 100%. You usually need a good year, but you can still play and you can still be effective. Every player obviously heals differently, so we'll find out. I think the Rod Moore thing is like, well, I'll tell you right now, guys, if we are in a position where we're looking good this year, we only have maybe one loss going into November, like maybe, we beat Texas or we beat Oregon, or, we have one loss between the two. And we're just carving our schedule out. And then the Ohio State games at the end of the year. Now, I'm not saying, we're going to bring Rod Moore for the Ohio State game. What I'm saying is playoff run. You get Rod Moore back on this defense for a playoff run. This defense we're expecting to be elite will likely get even eliter, so that'll be big time. And then just to hit on some of these other depth pieces, Wesley Walker, we've hit on, that's a name to know. Braden Hillman is the coaching staff is high on him. He's just fairly young. He's been in the program for 1 year. We'll see if he can I expect him to potentially get a special teams role. You'll see him there. Cody Jones is another. I was a fan of him coming out of Tennessee, out of high school. A very good athlete. It'll be interesting to see if he can crack even special teams or some type of rotation. Jade Mangan, we've gave an update on. He just needs more time on task. Listen, he started last year for Michigan State. It's not like the kid can't play. You may see him on special teams. It wouldn't, again, like we're saying, well, there's these starters, there's these depth pieces, guys. If Michigan gets a 3-score lead in the fourth quarter, you will see these kids come on the field. So these are all names that are at the top of the depth chart. So, we'll see what these kids can do with it this fall.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think through. Let's all think through together the schedule at the end of the year for playoffs, because I do agree. Who was it? Was saying? Keegan. He should sit until the playoffs. Maybe the scenario is Ohio State last week in November. Then you've got the Big Ten title game potentially. Then you've got the playoffs, but the playoffs still wouldn't start for a couple of weeks, right? So you actually have a few more weeks there if you wait between the Ohio State game and whatever it is, mid-December for
right.
the playoffs. So I think that makes sense. I think that's, maybe that's what they should be aiming towards. Let's see what happens. I mean, that would be fantastic if that would work out that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of added thoughts. I feel like we've hit on the safeties quite a bit, but you do notice some of these players are mentioned multiple times in the depth because they might be potential at various positions and could be rotated out depending on what the needs of Wink Martindale's that particular concept that particular day. But yeah, as far as these players, I think Rod Moore, what they would probably do is while I don't think that they would necessarily, unless he is 100% ready to roll at, I don't know if they'd put him right at the Quentin Johnson role. I think what they would probably do is some rotation. And maybe there are a couple of things that, especially from a practicing perspective, and how much is he going to be studying and what concepts is he going to be studying? Well, let's have him on like a play count or these concepts he's going to go in this package. I feel like that's probably what they'll do, at least in the beginning of when he comes back. If Michigan goes on a playoff run, it could be a very different story.
Yeah.
But I think when he first comes back, it'll be specific concept X. Here's Rod Moore's concept that he's going to be in.
Yeah, I think it'll be a slow, gradual increase of playing time over time. So we'll see. It's something we'll monitor. We'll definitely be on top of all that.
Absolutely. So for X Factor, sleeper, and bold prediction on the safety position.
Yeah, so the X factor I'm going to go with is Makari Page. He's the familiar name. He's the one who's been in this defense. It's his year to take that next step and lead the secondary on the back end. So that's who I have as my X factor. My sleeper is Wesley Walker. I think he's going. I think I'm interested to see if he can take that starting role. Now that I'm hearing that he's taken some reps, I'm interested to see because remember, he's transferred from Tennessee. He doesn't know the playbook like Quentin Johnson does. Once he learns the playbook and he can start reacting instead of thinking, what type of player do we see on the field? He was targeted by Lamar Morgan to come to Michigan and Brian Jean-Marie, former connections. I'm very interested to see, what can he be? And then my bold prediction is Rod Moore will come back for another season. That's my bold prediction.
Wow, that's a good one.
Michigan's NIL game will step up and make that happen. That's my bold prediction.
Well, Quentin Johnson's back because of NIL.
Yep. And there'll be more next year. That's facts. Because there's been some shared revenue news, which maybe we can hit on when there's a little less news. But it's interesting to hear some of the rumors that are being discussed for splitting that. So we'll see.
Okay. So I might be going down like this might be chalk, whatever. But Makari Page, X Factor, sleeper, Quentin Johnson, bold prediction. I mean, I'm rooting for the Michigan State kid, Mangum. So I'm gonna say that he is going to be a regular contributor. He's not going to be a starter, but he's going to be up there in the rotation. So I'm rooting for the Michigan State guy. So
yeah, how sweet would it be if he's out there against Michigan State and he picks him off? Like, oh, how amazing!
Maybe that should be the bold prediction. He starts against Michigan State just because he's hungry.
Let me at him. That could be. So yeah, I'll go Makari Page as well. It just reminds me of the Will Johnson pick. It's like you kind of that one's the obvious one to me. Sleeper. Yeah, this is a tough one. Wesley Walker could be really serious, and given the fact that there's been a couple of magazines, especially Phil Steele, it's named him as a starter. At the very least, I think he's going to be heavier in the rotation than people think, and he's gonna break out. Bold prediction: Rod Moore. Yeah, I like the Rod Moore additional season thing, but I think a bold prediction might be Rod Moore takes back the starting role for the playoff run.
Well, that's a good one.
There you go.
Yeah, that's a good one.